On YouTube. This is LA Prepper with my third attempt to make this video. The topic of today's video is how to leverage your efforts. I was like, what's going on? Oh, I'm getting an error message in the video. So let's take a quick look at this. What's going on? Oh no, we had liftoff. The cam, if you notice, right there. Let's see. See that? That is what you do not want to see. We don't want to see that space right there. Now, what does this have to do with me? Well, let's take a look at a couple other things. This is a YouTube channel I have to help me get a job. This is a website I have to help me get a job. And let's take a look what's on here. Past work. Brief collection of some of my past work in no particular order. Differential analysis, vibration, isolation of a spring mass damper. We got aerodynamics projects. We have control systems, inverted pendulums, fluid dynamics, boundary layers, optimization, control systems, multi-body dynamics. Look at all these big fancy words. LQR, that's big control stuff. This is how SpaceX lands their stuff with advanced control system stuff. So, why am I talking about websites and YouTube channels and leveraging your effort? Well, let me continue this video by sharing an analogy that I use when I talk to people about passive income versus active income. And the analogy is that of the hamster wheel. If your making money is connected to the wheel spinning, then as long as you're at work, you're making money. That's great. Well, the problem with that is when you are not at work, you are not making money. You might think, well, that's not really a problem. I don't need to make money when I'm not working. Well, if you want to have any sort of financial security in your future, you need to be making money when you're not at work. I'm going to leave passive income for a separate video because I'm certainly not an expert on it, but how that relates to my current life right now in regards to my job search is this. I spent hours and hours and hours writing all those papers, right, on aerodynamics and fluid dynamics and regular dynamics, multi-body dynamics, control systems, and on and on and on. Now, I did those because I was in a class, and while I was in that class, I was spinning the wheel, the school hamster wheel, if you will, so that I could get the credits, finish the class, get my degree, okay? School is kind of a bad example of the hamster wheel analogy because you are supposed to do all the work yourself, like I have done. So you really can't get someone else to spin your school hamster wheel for you. But in regards to looking for a job, you absolutely can leverage your efforts. Now, I'm talking about getting a job, but leveraging your efforts can apply to a lot of different areas of your life. It can apply to trying to solve a problem, working on a project, getting motivated. For example, Prepper Bob, shout out to Prepper Bob. I'm going to give a shout out to Hooples, Die Bullfrog 79. I could give a shout out to all my peeps, but those are just a few shout outs off the top of my head. Acer, see you comment here and there. Billy, who's the guy who commented recently? Billy Bird. I don't want to mess up his username. Billy something. Oh, I'm in the wrong channel. Oh my gosh, this is a tragedy. Well, okay, now I gotta fix this. I have to give the right shout out before I continue. I'm sorry. Billy Bird Outdoors. Okay, shout out to Billy Bird Outdoors. Anyways, Prepper Bob did a video recently about his workshop, and understandably, he was a little bit embarrassed about the state of his workshop. But what I thought was really interesting about that video is I think in a sense he was trying to leverage the community to get a little bit of kind of motivation and inspiration to like get the workshop in orders, the trash and the organization and projects and all. Check out Prepper Bob's channel. Source of Embarrassment is the name of the video. At any rate, I think it had a really positive effect. I made a video in response to it. We've seen some other YouTube people say, hey, PB, you're not the only one with a workshop or a project that needs a little bit of organization. This is my workshop. This is what I got going on. So in that way, Prepper Bob could have just not shared that with YouTube and said to himself, oh, screw the goddamn workshop. I just don't know what to do with it. Groan. But he didn't. He took a little bit of action, shared with the world something that's going on in his life, and the world said, hey, PB, you're not alone. Let's see if we can, help get you to a state of mind where you're feeling a lot more positive about trying to get the workshop in order. And, to his credit, he was burning trash the other day. He was working on a really cool Super Bowl logo. So in that way, Prepper Bob helped leverage the efforts in his own personal life so that he can make further personal gains in his life. And I think that's really cool. So that's kind of another example. But whether or not you're trying to solve a problem, work on a project, get information on something, there are so many advantages to trying to leverage your effort. Of course, there's YouTube, there's social media, there's websites. There's just endless amounts of ways to leverage your efforts online. And if you're not really big on the online stuff, if you don't know what Reddit is, you've never heard of GoFundMe. Okay, if you've never heard of GoFundMe or Kickstarter or Indiegogo, stop what you're doing right now, pause the video, go check out those websites, and Google the term crowdsourcing. 2 words, crowdsourcing. You can use crowdsourcing to gain money. You can use crowdsourcing to get information. I crowdsourced like top 10 outdoor things or top 20, prepper items on the list that I was looking to buy. And people were responding with their own organization of the list. So crowdsourcing is another phenomenal way to bring in a bunch of people to help you do something. And of course, like I'm talking about leverage, when you crowdsource something, you don't have to stand on the corner and ask everyone you meet for $1 or $5 to help you with your project. You spend a certain amount of time, you spin your hamster wheel, get your GoFund page all set up. Then once it's set up, you kind of wash your hands and you let go. You let the internet do its work for you while you're sleeping, while you're in the shower, while you're doing whatever. The internet is leveraging your efforts because that's what the internet does. The internet is an amazing force multiplier. Now, I talked a little bit about the technological side of leveraging your efforts, but of course, you can use human capital to leverage your efforts too. So as far as that example, or an example for this human capital subject of the video, off and on, I get contacted by recruiters for jobs, right? I have my email out there. I'm not super shy about putting my real email address on my resume. And you might think, well, aren't you going to get a bunch of spam if you put your real email on your resume? Yeah, I'm going to get a little bit of spam. But here's the trick. Spam filters work pretty well. I can read spam. I can tell what spam is pretty quickly. But you never know what you're going to find, right? So I got this email right after the Super Bowl from Mark Detor, D-E-T-O-R, of LINQM, LinQM, I don't know how to say it, talent acquisition, right? Staffing company. And it's an automated email. Paul, how have you been? Who was your Super Bowl team this year? Blah, 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 right? But the subject of the email and the person who sent it both got my attention. The subject was new roles in engineering. Now, I don't know a lot about computers, but I know enough to know that he probably sent an email to a bunch of engineers that said new roles in engineering. He probably sent an email to a bunch of accountants that said new roles in accounting. That's okay. If he's taking, or if his company is taking action to market themselves in engineering as a staffing company that works with engineers, I want to be in contact with him, right? Now, speaking of leverage, did Mark Detor personally send this message? Maybe. He might have hit send. He might have specifically written the text for it. But there's a good chance that he didn't. There's a good chance that his company is working with they either have an internal system or some third-party company that they use to do their marketing. And the marketing company said, hey, look, after the Super Bowl, people are awake, people are checking their email. Why don't you catch them Sunday night before the Monday rush of business takes place? We'll set you up with these subjects, these email lists. We're going to personalize it. Their name's going to be in the front of the email, blah, blah, blah. And Mark said, hey, that's great. I don't want to be working at 9:06 p.m. I want the internet to leverage my efforts and work for me. And it worked. I responded to him and say, hey, I'm looking for an engineering job, blah, blah, blah. Here's my website. And, I sometimes I respond a little bit in a cavalier manner to these emails, but the bottom line is I'm just trying to find out if they're real, if they're a human being. If they are, they'll email me back. And if not, they won't. So he emailed me back, sounds like a plan, send me your resume, we'll go from there. I sent him my resume. He said, thanks, I'll keep an eye out. What are you looking for in terms of location and compensation? I sent him an email back. This is what I'm looking for. This is where I'm looking. And he said, sounds good. Thanks for the feedback. So all of this email chain on my part took less than 10 minutes to send, 2 or 3 emails, probably a minute for that email, a minute for this email, and a minute for that email. So I might have spent all of 3 minutes corresponding with this guy via email. And what that's doing is I'm leveraging my effort. So instead of spending 3 minutes looking for a job or 3 minutes talking to people on the street, I'm leveraging my efforts by intelligently sending my information and working with people who are also leveraging their efforts. This guy works for a staffing company, and staffing companies know very well how to leverage their efforts. He's not going to go call hundreds and hundreds of engineering companies. He probably has a select list of engineering companies that he works for. He might even have some recruiters in his office that kind of know what's going on with engineering. So he's the senior talent guy. He's probably not the guy doing all the legwork. He probably has junior talent acquisition specialists helping him with that. So I leverage my effort to connect to him. He leverages his network. He might send an email out to a few people saying, hey, if you find anything engineering related, send it to me. Maybe he's not doing anything like that specifically for me, but the point is I can spend 3 minutes of time and get an infinite return on that at no cost to me other than my time. And on Sunday night at 9 o'clock, I'm not doing any work for anyone anyways, so I may as well spend 3 minutes working with this guy to try to get a job, right? So that is one example of how you can use human capital to leverage your efforts. But it goes beyond that. Die Bullfrog 79 was talking in regards to my lack of firearm skills that I should get a mentor. A mentor is a great way to leverage your efforts. One of the best quotes from a coach that I ever heard, this was at some one-day pole vault training camp. I am a terrible pole vaulter. Terrible. But I went to this one-day seminar because my coach sent me there or whatever. And coach said something I'll never forget. He said, practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. The point is, you practice something wrong long enough, you're going to learn those bad habits, and then you're just practicing something wrong. So a mentor is a great way to leverage your effort in the sense that if you're going to spend 30 minutes a week trying to learn how to do something, how to fire a firearm better, how to improve your outdoor skills, for example. If you spend that time just by yourself and you don't research anything, you're not taking a conscious effort to improve the level of your skill, you might get a little bit better, but you're not going to improve yourself as much as if you were working with a mentor. I sort of have an unofficial welding mentor that if I wanted to brush up on some welding stuff, I would talk with him about it. In fact, when I was at the museum, maybe not last week or the week before, we were looking at something that got welded, and we were talking about the welding, why it was MIG welded, because the person that welded it was doing MIG welding, but you could arc weld it and look at the spatter. That means he was running really hot. So, in that same sense, I can just look at the weld, think to myself about it, and not really get anything out of it, or I can spend a few minutes talking with my sort of pseudo mentor about the weld and learn and reinforce what I know about welding just in a few minutes, because I'm trying to leverage my efforts by speaking with someone who is familiar with the field so they know what's going on, right? So I know this video is getting a little bit long. I'm probably close to 15 minutes, but I just want to share with you all that no matter what you're doing in life, don't try to do everything yourself. Of course, you're going to do a lot of work yourself, but when it comes to, anything in life that you're working on, if you can call upon a little bit of help from people in your local physical community or from people in your online community, I really, really strongly recommend it. It takes a very minimal amount of time, investment on the front end to even put up a website, start a YouTube channel, record a video, interact with someone online, and you really don't know what benefit you're going to get until you put that energy into it. So this is LA Prepper telling you to leverage your efforts, because as hard as you work and as hard as we all work, we can't always be spinning the hamster wheel ourselves. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.